Hey, Bob and Dave, this is Jacques+Roy. Y'all doing okay today?
Mayor, wonderful,
morning,
Mayor.
sir.
How are you?
Fine. I wanted to call and address a couple of things that I hear the audience concerned about, and I think rightfully so. And you have an audience on 970 that pays a lot of attention to government, and that's a good thing, and that's across the board from local to state to national.
Yeah.
And we have a good, I think, highlighted example the other day at a council meeting, and I know people get concerned and think, well, why aren't the council and the mayor working together? And I'd like to make one general point first, and that's please go look at Baton Rouge and every other major city in the state, and you will find that this dynamic of tugging between the legislative and executive branches, if you look at KIP and the council there, I won't say it's a lot worse because I don't want to characterize their interaction there, but it's considerably more heightened in how things are addressed, and we tend to forget that. Look at the legislature and the governor, and you'll see kind of the same, and our founder sort of intended that. On the same page, you have to talk about, but what about the things, if you're 90% of the time in agreement, why can't you move forward? And that's what I'd like to talk for a second about with you guys.
Okay.
Gentlemen, I send letters every week, and I send letters to document that we are making these attempts. Some people say, well, don't send a letter, pick up the phone and call. I gave up that some time back because that doesn't work either. Calls don't get returned. Letters go unanswered, no response. We've offered operational meetings, staff participation by councilmen. No one has ever offered that. We offered a meeting with each president. I've had two since I've come on, to meet every Friday to go over any issue they have. No show. Mr. Johnson, Roosevelt+Johnson, the other day, talked about whether this administration was overspending. And I want to point out to both of you, and I think you've caught this nuance, and I think your audience has. That budget was approved. This is me filling jobs that were already budgeted for that we just haven't filled. At the end of Ned's administration, and I talked to him last night, and he acknowledged this, it was a bare-bones situation. I would suggest to you in the audience that the jobs we've put in place and the money we've spent, yes, there's an increase. We have policy folks, we have development folks. We never had a development team. If you look at the dollars in capital outlay and grants we've already received with this team, we've already paid for these positions. As I sit here today through this term, 2 more years, and I stand on that. And Mr. Johnson, I believe, knows that. I think that was grandstanding the other night, and I think a lot of people know that and saw that.
I think it's pretty obvious. I mean, from somebody like me on the outside looking in, to me it looks like there's a lot of posturing for 2 years down the road.
Yeah, yes, sir, I believe so. And I think Roosevelt does have things to offer, but to me, and this comes from some folks that formerly were in his campaign camp, Mr. Johnson never quits running for office. At some point, you have to do the part of being in office and not always be looking down the road. And I know that's that will be considered a harsh or a tough assessment by some, but that's been my experience.
I think one of the things, I think that a lot of people look at it, and I've talked about this several times with other people, and trying to make the point to them, and a lot of them don't get it, that, they look at what goes on the Pineville side of the river. Everybody gets along. And, but that is such an enigma over there. I mean, it's so totally unique. And that's not the way most city governments work.
It's not, and they're a Larson Act city, so the mayor actually sits with the council.
Yeah.
They're not as separated as we are. We're more, as a home rule charter, we're more organized like at the national level and the state level. But let me say this, though, in making that assessment. Clarence Fields does a great job, and so does his council. They do things differently than what's happening here, and I think your callers hit it. But I'll go a step further. Clarence and his council don't surprise each other with things. They always communicate about what's going to be there. I'm going to tell you again, gentlemen, I'm willing to back this up in writing if the callers need it. We don't try to do things by surprise, but almost at least every other council meeting, and perhaps sometimes more, there is something that comes up on the agenda that is a surprise. There are special meetings called with resolutions that have never passed through our staff. The legal Chuck Johnson has not seen them. And I don't think that's the way government should work. And we try to calmly work through that, and you'll see us. We don't make a big deal at the meetings. We just have to deal with it. But when you go back in the room after that, you talk to staff, you know, people are frustrated about it.
Yeah.
Mayor, would you favor a 72-hour notice on any agenda item, or it could not be allowed? I know they do that in Texas.
Makes a lot of sense, yeah.
I think that any kind of rule like that is unfortunately would be best for us here. And let me say this, I wouldn't favor it if we were getting along and able to move through things and at least disclose. It's all about transparency for the public.
Yeah.
Even if we can handle moving through it and do what we have to do to maneuver and make sure that ordinances and laws aren't being enacted that aren't in the best interest of the city, the whole idea of transparency and the open meetings rules, it's not about us. It's about you, the people. It's to give you the opportunity to look at an agenda in the newspaper and decide if you want to go to that meeting or not.
Right.
And that's what's being denied with the way the council runs it. I want the audience to know the administration has no say in the agenda for the council. We can request that things be added. In theory, just like at the state and national level, the mayor wouldn't even have to be there. It's their meeting. It's the council's meeting, and people need to understand that. I believe that with Channel 4 being public, I am probably going to start pushing more for equal time. In other words, an administrative response, because I don't think it's productive to have what happened the other night occur. I do believe that was political grandstanding. I believe that Roosevelt knows the answers to those questions, and that was a planned, I won't say attack, but certainly a planned confrontation with the administration. Saying that to Mr. Hess, if you go back and look at the meetings, he's gone over that signage issue 2 or 3 times, and they've asked, well, just come back next time, and you'll see us say, no, well, we're prepared to do it today, even though it wasn't on the agenda. We'll go through it. But that's not really the aim to get the information. It's to say, here we are trying to catch you not doing something. And I think the folks at home know how active this administration has been in the last year and a half.
Mayor, let me share something with you. I think a lot of people feel the frustration because everything positive is going for our area.
It is.
And the guys can't get their act together.
It is, and let me say this about the council. They have been instrumental, at least some members, in putting us in the position where we are with Spark. Spark is not a tax plan. It takes credit you've already built up and uses that for reinvestment. It's targeted. It follows the same objective criteria that Governor Jindal follows, and looking at from NGO policy to other things. How do we want to spend? We want to know that it has more than a very discrete or unique interest, but has a regional interest. We want to know that you have a good business plan if you're going to partner with the city. We want to know how many people you're affecting. All of those things go into it. And I think that when you have momentous change like that, and I think Bobby's experienced the exact same thing, you're going to ruffle some feathers.
Yeah,
and that's unfortunate, but it happens. I think Kip Holden is trying to do some big things in Baton Rouge, and he is going through a dogfight every council meeting. And I would, again, tell people to get a chance, watch Baton Rouge's government access, and you'll see you'll probably switch back to Channel 4.
Mayor, I hate to cut you short. Hate to cut you short. We've got the governor calling in, and thank you for breaking the ice. We'd love to have you back in the studio with us.
That'll be great.
Thank you so
guys.
much.
Thanks for giving me the opportunity to talk.
Anytime. You're always welcome.